Chris Barber and Tamara Leach's trial starts next week. Are they gonna see a fair trial? We all followed the Freedom Convoy as it took off. Freedom organizers Tamara Lich and Chris Barber face off trials in September of 2023. Proceeding expected to last for about 16 days. Today, I have Marty up north coming in to talk about this and many other things. Welcome back, Marty.
Clyde, how's it going?
It's going. Holy cow, what a week. Lots has been happening. I hope everything's good. I saw your dumpster fire tweet today. That was...
Yeah, you know how it feels like to me right now? It kind of I think for most Canadians, it feels like summer is over. And I kind of feel like we've had sort of maybe a nice summer other than the forest fires. But and I sort of have a feeling that things are going to get ugly in September, October, November. That on the political side, we got a whole bunch of nasty stories coming down, some nasty events, and I don't know. It feels like a calm before the storm. It doesn't even. It feels like the forest fires were just a minor storm compared to some of the shit show that's about to hit us in September, October, November. That's just my thought. I'm feeling negative.
I want to talk about some of the forest fire stuff, which is on the negative side. But first, let's hit this first story. Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, they're being tried together. This is Mischief, among other things. It's going to last about 16 days. This is more than murder trials have ever been put forward. And this is to do with the Convoy. As we know, people were upset with COVID restrictions and mandates, and they said enough is enough. And they all got together in Canada and inspired the whole world to stand up against their governments that were doing similar things. And now they're going to see trial. Now, is this going to be a fair trial? How is this going to play out?
I mean, it's already off to a non-fair process. I mean, let's expand. Do most people even know what mischief is? I mean, mischief is the charge that, when you and I were kids and you, I don't know, you stole a flag at the school and you got caught for stealing the flag, or you got caught for, I don't know, spray painting a sign somewhere, or doing some vandalizing to the ball diamonds or something like that. That's the realm of mischief. Mischief is not something where the cops come knocking on your door and arrest you under a warrant and put you in jail for 40 days while waiting trial, which is basically what happened to Tamara. I mean, this is if this is the most ridiculous process for mischief that I can think of. And as you mentioned, I mean, there's people who, you've interviewed who's the author of that show on Vancouver there, Aaron Gunn, right? He does his documentary on Vancouver, and he talks about the fact that, in the city of Vancouver, the police know of guys that get arrested during the day for doing either breaking and entering or doing some drug trafficking or doing something, and then they're on bail the next day, and then they do it again, and then are on bail the next day, and they do it again, and they do it again. So there's violent offenders. There's people who could, you could get drunk behind the wheel of a car, kill a family of 3, and you're still going to get bail, and you're not going to go, get dragged to Ottawa. So they're not off to a fair process to start with. Mm-hmm. So do I expect them to get a fair process going forward? Well, I'm going to say no, based on some of the other things we learned in the last couple of days. And you did a story on that. We're not really news, but we're learning that, very senior appointed judges are being appointed. Being appointed as a judge was always kind of a patronage appointment. You do a good job as a government lawyer or something like that, and you become a judge, and then you move up. But now we're finding out that judges are sitting down and doing like crazy donations to the Liberals and to the Trudeau foundations, and then getting appointed. So I mean that goes on. That's always gone on.
Not just the judges, but there was the Crown prosecutor Karimji who is prosecuting against Tamara Lich when she was when they were trying to hold her on bail, and they brought her all the way back as well on a breach of bail because she was in a photograph with Tom Marazzo, even though they had their attorneys present and all of this stuff.
Attorneys present, absolutely.
And the Karimji, he was a Liberal donor, and it was seen that, and he's one of those Liberal insiders, and I believe he may be off the case now. They may have pulled him off the case. And if they didn't, I mean, how would this be seen in the public eye moving forward anyway?
So I'm hopeful that they'll get a fair trial. They might not get a fair trial, but they might get some sort of, I don't think they're going to get. I mean, the worst that can happen with Mischief is, normally the worst that happens with Mischief is you get whatever, a $500 fine and 20 hours of community work. So let's hope that this comes to an end and that's all that happens. I can't see something worse than that in terms of outcome happening. You don't get a criminal record for the rest of your life because of committing mischief. But, and at the same time, there's people that say the government and Trudeau in particular want to make an example of them. That's great. You can make an example of them, but I also think you can make a martyr out of them. And I think we're finally getting into that zone where, there's probably some people are saying that we probably don't want to turn them into martyrs because this could get ugly. So, it's going to be interesting to watch, and not just this case. I mean, the Coots case, the four guys in Coots we're still waiting for them.
I was just thinking you were saying how could it get any worse? Well, it's worse for them actually in the immediate time. They've been in jail for 560 some odd days and without a trial, with no allegations as we've seen so far, and no end in sight for them.
Dude, they're at the point where their time served in jail could be the equivalent of a potential sentence. I mean, they could be found guilty and already have served all their time. Like it's insane that somebody would have to wait 500 days before going to trial. Completely insane. Completely insane.
Oh, again, you're saying that people have been released on other like more serious charges. There was famously in this past week, it was I think it was Edmonton. They had a sexual offender released out into the public, and then the RCMP had to contact people and they had to put out a public statement saying this sexual offender is known to reoffend and we think that he will reoffend. We're just warning everyone in the community that we've just released him into, rather than keeping him behind bars or putting him in a mental institution. This is the way they've gone. But yet in this case, you have these people that are being...
my blood just started boiling a little bit as you were saying this. That is crazy. That is not what I want my government to be doing.
Yeah.
When we talk about the things we want our governments to be doing, I want my courts to be working. I want my police system to be working, my schools to be working, my passport office to be working. And yes, I made a video. I posted a comment about a dumpster fire because the country is a dumpster fire of, the institutions are failing us. I don't have faith in the courts, and I'm losing faith in the police, and I'm losing faith in so many institutions. It's insane. It's insane. Okay, yeah. Let's get on a different topic.
Yeah, well, let's get on to that. So, what's happening now is as we were saying, how this was going to be a big hit to Trudeau, and this is why they put these publication bans on Tamara Lich, and they put it on Chris Barber. They tried to for a while anyway, and he was able to break away from it. Eventually Tamara was able to break away from it, but it was because it was going to cause such unpopularity for the sitting prime minister if she was able to go out. So this is why they wanted to shut her up and shut these people up so they can't speak. But now that this trial is happening, it's happening at, well, again, an inopportune time for the prime minister, as his party, it looks like, wants rid of him. And I'm just going to get into some of these articles that are out here right now. We've got the Toronto Sun, of course, right-leaning publication, right of center, saying Trudeau should do the right thing and by the Liberals and step down. And that's what they're saying in this article. But then you go on to the left and you have the Toronto Star, which is not by any means a right-wing publication. No. Justin Trudeau should step down before the next election, a majority of survey respondents are saying. And then you go all the way even to 338 Canada that wrote an article saying abrupt late summer shift. Polls now put CPC in majority territory. Scroll down and you get this line here. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could potentially play his political career this coming fall, because once December comes, it will be standing a mere 20 months away from the next general election. Just enough time for the Liberals to oust their leader and get a leadership race underway. So this plays this plays in what I was saying a couple of weeks ago, right? So I thought there's going to be an election in the fall, but in lieu of an election, then there could be an ousting of the prime minister. I could see that. That's, we Conservatives in Alberta had to do the same thing, different party, but the Conservatives, we had to oust Jason Kenney and give ourselves enough time to rebuild around
Danielle Smith. So I can see the Liberals. I can truly see the Liberals doing that. I mean, Trudeau won't face the music, but his party, the senior members, the organization, that run the party, they're seeing the writing on the wall. He I mean, it's incredible how many scandals this man has accumulated. Absolutely incredible, like world record scandals, but he's running out of room right now. I mean, there could be an acquittal coming up with Tamara and Chris. There is more bad news on interest rates. There's more bad news on housing. There's more bad news on immigration. I mean, today we find out that they're fudging the numbers on immigration, right? The population of Canada is not, they were proud to announce it's 40 million. Now people are saying, no, it's 41 million. Like there's literally 1 million unaccounted for immigrants that have snuck in the border that are running around. We got inflation, out of control inflation. I don't care what people say. Again, I don't care how many times Chrystia Freeland says that the inflation is 2.8%. I have a number here, and I'm on a fixed rate contract for electricity, and I just got a notice that my fixed rate comes up for renewal in 2 months from now. So I'm like, oh shit. So
it's going to be big.
I looked. Yeah, I'm currently paying for electricity. I'm paying $5.79 a kilowatt, and the best rate I can find right now is $12.39, which is a 91% increase. So I'm like, holy smokes! Yeah, like that's doubling my electric rate, and like I said, I don't give a shit what Chrystia Freeland says inflation is. I'm doing the math right now, and that's a 91% increase from the rate I currently have. So the Liberals are facing so much bad news. Well, let's talk about this.
Before you go on to that, I wanted to address the inflation thing. And a lot of people are calling it now the CPI because it's not a CPI. It's not a consumer price index. It's just a bunch of baloney that the government comes up with to tell you what the the inflation numbers are going to be. I say housing because it looks like they're starting to add housing, the cost of buying homes, to the CPI because they're on the decline. It looks like the housing prices are coming way down. This is when people have bought at the highs on the market value. Yeah, the actual prices have come down across Canada. Well, it depends on the region, but some regions have gone up.
No, it's expected. I mean, I just hadn't heard it, but I'm not surprised. I mean, that's what increasing interest rate is supposed to do. I mean, that's one of the
it slowed down the growth in people taking out these giant mortgages, and some people can't help it because they're already in them, and this is really going to hurt the market moving forward as their mortgages reset in, again, the next 12 months or so. A big giant chunk of Canadian mortgages are going to reset. You can't get into very, very long-term set mortgages.
So housing is already one of the buckets in the consumer price index. Are you saying they're adding something else, or they're adding what, the cost of transactions? Or
that's the thing. It's really hard to get the actual numbers for the CPI, but what they'll lean on for a lot of these assessment numbers when they come out and they say, look at the price, this consumer price index is doing so great. Last time it was fuel. Well, fuel came down marginally, but the fuel tax on top of it kind of evened it all out. So our fuel prices they kind of stagnated for a few weeks there, and now they're on the rise again because they're about $2 a liter here in British Columbia, where I'm at. I hate to see what they're paying in the cities, but yeah, they'll lean on any numbers that are coming down, but then they ignore all the numbers that are going way up, like food prices and all of this. I don't know when, because they don't publish this. They don't publish the numbers and what it is that they change in the CPI unless there's.
They do, but you got to dig hard and hard and hard. Like I said on several episodes ago, I found it for Alberta's CPI. I couldn't find it for the federal. I mean, there are several numbers we use in our finding the number that makes up our GDP, finding the number that makes up our CPI, finding transfer payments, trying to find real good information on transfer payments in Canada. So there's stuff the government doesn't want you to know. But can we segue this into Chrystia Freeland and the fact that the Liberals are completely tone deaf on that the cost of living and inflation. I mean, on the one hand,
absolutely.
they keep telling us, oh no, inflation's under control, is only 2.8%. But then whenever somebody brings up the fact that, their anecdotal story that, hey, filling up my gas tank went from $50 to $75, or my power bill went from $100 to $200, they seem to brush everything off. And I don't know when they're going to run out of opportunity to. She looked uncomfortable. She was asked, where was she this week? She's in Newfoundland, and she was asked about.
She's in PEI as well. That was
PEI. Like, Newfoundland is a province similar to Alberta. I mean, we're looking at, like I mentioned, my power bill is about to go high because and my gas bill is natural gas. Now I got access to natural gas, so that I'm not so worried. Newfoundland and PEI, I guess, they heat their homes with bunker oil or something like that, and they're facing this giant increase that's also affected by carbon tax. So it's a legitimate question, and then Freeland just blows away that question.
Yeah.
And so
one thing that they've ignored, I have the stat in front of me. This is from Better Dwelling. This is actually an old stat. It came out in December, but this is the household debt in Canada compared to GDP, and we actually surpassed that last year. We surpassed the debt. We've surpassed the GDP in household debt held in Canada, and this is by.
Okay, so this is on the left side is, what is that? Canadian dollars in trillions? Is that what that is?
Canadian dollars in trillions, and then this is the years, all the way up to from the 1990s to 2022. Gotcha. To where they have this data available, and we've gone all the way up to $2.07 trillion in household debt in Canada, where it's actually gotten to the point where it's actually, this is Canadian mortgage debt, and it hits a record high, more than GDP in Canada. And I mean, we can only imagine where it's at now, because this is the data that's come out for 2022. This is beyond before 2023 and all the stuff that we've gotten into now with the interest rates and amortization rates going way out on people's mortgages.
Yeah,
this is, I mean, how do we sustain this? What do we do? Well, you said Chrystia Freeland is telling people, no, you're just gonna have to get used to this, the rising costs of gasoline and fuel and all these other things.
Well, yesterday I drove down. I was up in northern Alberta yesterday, and I drove home. So I had 7 hours of driving, and I was listening to talk radio, and talk radio was dominated by the topics we're talking about right now, by inflation. But they were also talking about the number of people who are leaving, as many as are coming in. There's also there's a ton of people that are leaving Canada. They're disappointed in Canada. Anyways, I digress. Mm-hmm. What they didn't talk about on the talk shows, most of the problems we face are government created. They're government created. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like there's a shortage of housing, because there's an increase in immigration. The immigrants aren't adapting, and they're coming in here and they're taking longer to become productive. There's and then we can't catch up on the housing. The government keeps saying we're going to catch up on the housing. Yeah, you can catch up on the housing by streamlining the approval process, freeing up some crown land and giving places to build houses, lowering the taxes on everything that goes into building a house. You could literally lower the taxes on I know they're stubborn about their carbon tax, but maybe just give us lower the carbon tax on fuel used by construction workers so that they can build houses. You lower the carbon tax on transporting materials to the house. Like, it was frustrating to listen to all the problems we have, and some of the problems. That's what somebody asked Freeland the other day. Like, could you please just freeze your carbon tax increases for another, for 10 years. You're at $50 a ton. Why do you want to go to 65 and 100 and 130? Mm-hmm. Like, they're tone deaf. That it's all it is. They're tone deaf. But I'm back to, I don't want to talk about conspiracy, but I do think they want to wreck some economies. They want to wreck some economies. The people, like, they're wrecking Alberta's economy. There's nothing else that I can say. That there's no other rhyme or reason for what they're doing.
Well, they've wrecked all kinds of economies, and it's not just that. I mean, building housing material, you could just go right to the forestries industry. They've been working their best to shut down the forestries industry, not allow, and obviously the fuel taxes hurt them as well, just as bad as it hurts any other industry. Getting lumber to the lumber mills, all the stuff that's caused, because I mean this is the lifeblood of my town, is the lumber industry, and a lot of Canadians could go right back to work. It would be no problem if the government would really literally just get out of the way. Get out of the way on these things, and they're just causing all kinds of issues. And one actually I wanted to segue to here, and this is covered in a new documentary that's just dropped yesterday, and I encourage a lot of people to go out and see this. This is by Simon Hergott. He's made a lot of great documentaries, but this is Stolen Water, about British Columbian farmers who are under attack right now, and they're being told they're not allowed to use water. They're said, oh, this is because of climate change, and this is because the rivers are drying up. Even when they're using natural aquifers that they invested in themselves, they've already been cut to a tenth of what they were used to be allotted to use. And a lot of times they're coming in on their last crop as well and saying, okay, you've used enough water, we're just shutting you off now, just before they get their last crop out. And for a lot of people in agriculture, they realize that, most of your crops leading up to that end crop for the year, those are the ones that pay off the costs, and then all your profit would be gone if you weren't allowed to have that last crop. And it's it's destroying them.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's destroying them.
So now you're giving me something to research tomorrow, because this is going to be, again, for me, what just clicked is why what's the problem that they're trying to solve. I'd like them to tell me what the problem is, and then let's try and come up with a solution. But I'm going to be looking at this tomorrow. Then I'm going to go look at the amount, because anecdotally, I know that the amount of food we produce in Canada per hectare is like 75% more than it was 100 years ago. I mean, the advances we've done in the equipment, soil management, water management, fertilizer management, everything else. I mean, we are a world-class producer of food that does it more efficiently than just about anybody else on the planet. And I guarantee you tomorrow, if I look at data on this, or I'll go look at this video, first of all, then I'll go look in data, and then I won't be able to find what problem they actually think they're trying to solve, because I've given up on government. They're going to try and solve a non-existent problem with the wrong solution to start with.
Well, and it's really good because they do get into that, and they say that the problem is the rivers drying up, and because of global warming, even though they're using aquifers to get their water from. And well,
what's the term we used during the flooding last year? They called them atmospheric rivers. So now the underground rivers are drying up apparently, but the atmospheric rivers are
it's unreal.
Thank you for bringing this up. I want to go look up that.
Absolutely. So I recommend everybody go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. You can go have a look at it after this video, and just know I'm gonna have Simon on Friday for the live stream, so check that out, because that's an interesting one. But then this kind of segues also into the other environmental disasters that they're saying, and this is the wildfires in the Shuswap. So I covered this last week, and we talked about this, and I even had Sharon from BET's. She went from having a food truck and her Instagram to promote her food truck and her tea products in the Shuswap region to being like one of the only people on the ground actually showing what's actually happening with that region with the forest fires. And a lot of people are, saying these could have been arson. There was, I heard from people that it sounded like some of the people on footage, because I don't speak French, but it sounded like they were celebrating as they were running away from these fires. Other people were saying that it was,
what's French got to do with it?
They were speaking in French in the video. I couldn't understand. It sounded
in BC.
Yeah, it was in BC. And
all right, I'll have to find that too. Then I'm gonna have to find that and listen.
So a lot of people are just saying that it was, it was controlled burns, and then it got out of control again with the whole wind situation, like they had in Hawaii, and then mysteriously, instead of doing the right thing, the government came in, they brought in RCMP, shut down the roads, and they said anybody who remains behind after declaring a state of emergency, they said, no, you can't travel, you can't go around, you can't help. and they shut people down, and people were just trying to get outside of their house to put out spot fires that were about to flare up, and the RCMP were impeding this situation. There was reports that water had been shut off, but then I heard later reports that perhaps it was because they're gravity fed and those reservoirs had dried up. But it was still hearsay, and nobody knows what the actual cause for all of this is. But it just shows that the government's there to protect us from stuff, supposedly, and all they've been doing is impeding when we need to be able to help ourselves, and causing more problems in the first place.
Well, no, and when you see those kinds of little interviews, those casual interviews, and there's a tone in some people where the people are saying we don't trust the government anymore, and then you got the government saying, well, you should trust us. It's like, no, the reason we don't trust you is because there's too much evidence against you. You've screwed this up too many times. So I heard somebody trying to say that, somebody who stays behind to fight the fires at their own home shouldn't be considered a hero. It's like, bullshit. I'm like, if I was there, I completely understand why a farmer or an acreage owner or somebody would want to stay behind and put up a fight to try and protect their home during these fires, because we're getting at that point where, again, the governments are failing us in the categories where we expect them to perform. Mm-hmm. Like, I want my firefighting system to work. I don't give a shit about teaching pride at schools or whatever. I want my courts, my fire system, my defense to work, and it's not working right now. And I get people. I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing. I'm glad that people are rebelling a little bit, fighting, and not taking everything that's happening on face value. I mean, are we in the conspiracy theory that this is a test for a climate lockdown? I don't think so. They're testing us for that ability to lock us down during use the climate crisis as an opportunity to lock us down further. So,
well, that's true, yeah. and we saw a bit of a case of revenge, or it seemed that way anyway in this scenario. So because of what was going on social media and people hearing about it, a bunch of people who are freedom oriented came together to confront the police officers that were actually putting these blockades on. They weren't residents of the area, but they were going in to fight for the rights of the residents. And we're talking like 20 people. This wasn't a huge group of people. Yeah. And against like 40 police that were there. So they were outnumbered by the police. The police put out spike strips to stop them from traveling in. And then I guess, I don't know who made the call, but Forestry Services, in response to this, pulled their firefighters. They said, we're pulling our firefighters out of the area because of this altercation between the police and...
So were the firefighters showing solidarity to the public or showing solidarity to the police?
It sounds like to the police. So that's where...
Yeah, that's...
It really, really came off the wrong way, and articles were written saying that there was another freedom convoy at the Shuswap region. When I talked with Sharon from BT's last week, and she said it was like 20 people, and that's all it was. And then they pulled the firefighters. Later, the firefighters were reinstated, brought back, and now they've been actually training people in the region to actually help fight the fires, which is the right thing to do, and it should have been the course they took in the first place.
Totally. I mean, they should be doing. They should be asking. They should be doing annual. In the industry, we call them emergency response exercises, and then the government does the same thing. I mean, we practice for these events, and when I practice, we used to invite the fire department to come and join in our exercises, and it should be reciprocated. The government should have these exercises and invite the public. Like we said before, there are people who live in the country or on acreages or in rural settings that have mad skills, that have, I mean, look at me. I have a water pump. Doesn't sound like much, but I have a 3-inch trash pump. So I can bring my pump. I got 500 feet of hoses. And why wouldn't you want to involve me in fighting a fire? And why would you kick me out if I'm volunteering to defend my house? Well, what I'd say is, let me sign that waiver anyways. I'm going to sign the waiver. I'm going to clear my house. I'm going to take care of it, and you don't need to come rescue me. That's no exaggeration. That's the level I'm at. If the fire's bearing down, I ain't evacuating.
Well,
So
I wouldn't be hesitant to throw blame at some lawyers in this case, because they'll always
yeah,
throw in arguments to say that, oh well, he was in duress and he isn't eligible to sign anything or things like that. And we all know
yeah.
what lawyers do.
The-
Anytime there's human misery, the lawyers jump in and they're happy to make a buck on this. There's always
on
some.
on a sort of weirdly combined topic, did you see the video of the? Was it where's the Burning Man festival? Is it in Utah or is it in
I thought it was in
Mojave?
Nevada. I thought,
Nevada. Sorry,
yeah.
it's in Nevada. Did you see the video of the Nevada sheriffs? And I guess they're like
Oh yeah,
they're the
yes,
equivalent of that,
yes.
where he had no patience, right? But that's good because
For anyone
kudos
who's
to
listening
them.
and didn't see it, it's the Nevada
Yeah,
police. There was a barricade on the highway from some environmentalists, maybe a handful of them. They put a trailer across the highway, and Nevada came in. He came up real slow, and then just gunned right through their trailer, knocking it out of the road,
but
and then basically beat some people up and cuffed them and took them away.
or he came out of he came out of his police cruiser or truck with the guns at the ready and told people get on the ground.
Yeah,
But and he had a point. I mean, what you don't see in the video is that this is in Nevada and it's very hot, and these people, these environmentalists, picked sort of a bottleneck. They purposely picked a spot to block where nobody could go around it, and then the lineup of people was getting to be like 1,000 cars deep in the Nevada desert. So now
that's
you got 1,000
terrible.
people in the Nevada desert, and people were coming out of their cars and saying to the environmentalists, "You're quote unquote all about protecting the planet and people, but to do so, you're putting 1,000 vehicles at risk. That makes no sense."
No.
So yeah, I was happy to see that. Kudos to some police officer for having the. He'll probably no, he'll get away with it. He's not gonna
No, he'll be
he's not gonna
fine.
get
He'll be
reprimanded.
fine.
He'll be fine.
He'll be
Yeah,
fine.
he'll be
But
fine.
it just goes to show that I say this all the time. The climate alarmists, and I don't, because I'm an environmentalist at heart. I care about the environment. But these climate alarmists,
So am I.
it's steeped in misanthropy. They don't like humans. They don't like people. They have this other thing going on, and it's cult like. And I just can't agree with it, and I feel like I got to fight it all the way across the board, because it's just
And we elected one of those guys, and we made him Minister of the Environment. I mean, yeah, Gilbo is not a normal human being. He is
no.
a I'd agree. It's okay to be passionate about something, but he's beyond passionate. He's irrational about the environment and the solutions that he sees. And I agree with you. I think if somebody says, well, hey, Stephen, your solution of restricting water and farmers might damage the crops and kill 10,000 people, I guarantee he's one of the kind of guys that goes, oh, well, it's just the casualties of the cause, and ultimately, he's got a calculated number in his head of how many people could suffer for his cause, and I'm convinced of that.
Well, and it sucks because they're at the helm of power right now, and this is whether it's COVID or it's climate or any of these lockdowns or restrictions they want to put on people. This is why I came out with the "Do Not Comply" shirt on the store, on the Clyde Do Something merch store. So this has been a popular one this week. A lot of people jumping out and grabbing that. So be sure to go check out the merch store, the Do Not Comply shirt, as well as hoodies and hats and all those things that anything your heart desires. People ask for it, so always putting it out there. But one last thing I wanted to get to was Trudeau apparently has been in the plans of making a new house for the Prime Minister of Canada. And I mean, it couldn't come at a more tone deaf time when people are struggling to house themselves and will keep their houses even. And the Prime Minister of Canada wants to make another mansion in his own name, or for his own purposes as Prime Minister of Canada. Obviously, he won't be able to keep it when he leaves office, but I mean, the gall of a guy like this. He's already made more.
He's done crazy. He's not living in 24 Sussex, because we all know 24 Sussex a little bit old, right? It needs to be modernized. So he's living with the Governor General on the grounds there, but he had the cottage. So for people who don't know, I mean, the Prime Minister has two residences. Once you get elected Prime Minister of Canada, you have 24 Sussex, and you have Hetherington or something like that. No, that's the Prime Minister gets a cottage and a summer full-time home. The opposition leader gets a place, and so does I think the Speaker of the House. There's a couple of places, right? So, and that's a crazy perk, but I'm okay with that. But I'm okay. But it's also, it should be pure. It is the responsibility of the National Capital Commission. They're the ones who manage these buildings and decide when they need to be renovated. So Trudeau could, as far as I'm concerned, he can say whatever the hell he wants. It's not his responsibility to make sure he has a place to live. But obviously he's influenced because under his premiership, we did some millions and millions of dollars worth of renovations. Have you ever been to Rideau Hall? Have you ever seen, or 24 Sussex?
No, I've never been.
It's a garbage building. It's a garbage building. I mean, you know, and we're talking.
It's the biggest piece of garbage in our country at the moment. Anyway.
It's another example of Canadian governments failing and a bureaucracy letting a building go for shits. I mean, either gut it, don't even gut it, just turned it into a museum and let a few people go visit it. And then by Trudeau, you know, they're talking about, I'm sure it's been talked about many times. It's talked about every 5 years. I mean, I'm sure they're throwing numbers around like 24 Sussex will cost $20 million to restore and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, man, build them a new house somewhere I don't care if it costs $3 million. It's better than restoring that piece of shit for $20 million. So, and just build a house for future prime ministers, ignore Trudeau's wishes. But you're right. I'm glad he's asking for this because it just shows that he's tone deaf. It just shows that, well, Trudeau this week literally complained about, how hard politicians have. Same with Chrystia Freeland, right? I mean, they're trying to be sympathetic with us, like, oh, our life is tough too. No, your life is not tough. Your life is not tough, man. You got housing, you got chefs, you got people who pay your grocery bills. You've had 4 raises in 4 years. They're automatic. They're indexed to inflation.
Why do they even need a salary? I mean, they get everything paid for them, so they don't even need a salary.
Totally.
All that goes right into the bank. I mean, imagine if the average Canadian had a choice to have something like that. Even a fraction of that, and that would be more.
If you gave me Trudeau's salary and perks that he had for the last 7 years, if that was me, I'm retired. That's more. He's earned more money and more perks in 7 years than I have working my ass off for 35. So no sympathy from me. And to claim that he's got a tough job, he sucks at the job that he's doing. He's miserable at it. He's completely miserable at it. No, he's completely miserable at his job.
Well, I'm not going to disagree.
Did I say he sucks?
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get a disagreement there. But
I know we're trying to end this, but the other thing, I didn't see it, but I learned about it. I guess he came to Edmonton this week and he brought his daughter Ella because he wanted to show to his oldest daughter that not everybody hates him in Alberta. Is that a story? That's what I heard. You didn't see that?
Well, he had a
fundraiser in Edmonton.
Well, I saw he had a fundraiser and only about 40 people showed up. You couldn't even fill the small room.
So, again, 3-4 things that are wrong with that. I mean, he pleaded with us a couple of weeks ago that, hey, I'm going through a tough family breakup and please, support me in this crisis time and leave my kids out of it. Meanwhile, he has no problem packaging his kids for a photo op. We saw it when he went to see Barbie with his son. Well, he took his daughter, he brought her to Edmonton, to enemy territory, to show her that not everybody in Edmonton hates him. I saw a quick video of it. It was an awkward moment. And then it just shows the levels that human being is willing to stoop to get attention and to try and get reelected. I hope you're right, Clyde. I 100% hope you're right. I hope the party kicks him out. This will be a great topic if it happens. Let's talk about it next week. Who's in the wings to replace Trudeau? I mean, I'm going to think about that long and hard.
Well, people have been telling me Chrystia Freeland, and that would be a guaranteed loss for them because she can't. I mean, what do you even say to that? She's no better.
She's no better. No, she's no better.
All right.
God.
Well, I guess
all right.
we got to end it on that. If we're going to end it on a note, that's the one to end it on. Chrystia Freeland, not any better. It's hard to say if she's worse. Anyway, yeah. Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter, and if you're so inclined, Marty Up North on YouTube.
All right. Links as always in the description down below. Thanks again, Marty.
All right. Cheers, everyone.